So I want to tell you that Ukraine shall live. And I call to mind the words of the national anthem that Ukraine has not yet died, and indeed it never shall perish, despite Putin's repeated barbarous efforts at the erasure of the Ukrainian nation, trying to kill them physically, but also to kill them as a nation, to deprive them of the very name of a nation. So it was 10 days ago since President Zelensky addressed the British Parliament by video link, the first person in history to ever do so. And in doing so, President Zelensky, he consciously invoked the spirit of Winston Churchill. And he did so rhetorically and in every other sense, because he's facing a similar situation to the one that the United Kingdom confronted in the dark days of 1940. So Zelensky did not run away. He has led from the front. He has put himself in harm's way. He has led a nation renowned for its heroism and its solidarity. And he's written Ukraine's name higher than ever before, a name that shall never be effaced, long after the name Putin is lost to remembrance. It was a bravura oration that Zelensky delivered, and he restated his people's determination to fight and fight and fight to the bitter end. He spoke of their iron will to fight with their bare hands if necessary, and he declared that the last entrenchment of liberty would be his grave. The entire House of Commons gave him a standing ovation, an accolade to which they've never accorded to anyone else before. He was cheered till they raised the roof. They recognized that Ukraine is the front line for freedom everywhere, because if despotism and if tyranny is defeated there, it shall be defeated everywhere. And tyranny must not pass, because it will go ever deeper west if Putin is given a chance. And that's why he was cheered to the echo. It's a sign that times have changed, and we are living in a new era where Putin has ripped up the rule book of international law. And that's why there are the most heart-rending scenes from Ukraine every single day. But we're also living in the most awe-striking moment in modern times. And that's why my heart goes out to the Ukrainian people in their valiant struggle. They're manfully battling against overwhelmingly odds, daily doing battle against a merciless foe who has absolutely no ethical bottom line. The insensate savagery and sadism of the Putin regime are notorious. His heinous crimes have often been visited on his own benighted people, but now he wishes to inflict his foul crimes on his unoffending neighbor. The Putin regime is infamous for its mendacity, its cruelty, its pitiless barbarism, and now Putin's bloodthirstiness has been let loose on Ukraine, on another innocent victim, and his murder machine shall not intimidate the courageous people of Ukraine. Ukraine is immortal and irrepressible. It shall rise again like phoenix from the ashes, and Putin shall be branded for what he really is, a fascist Satan who must be destroyed for the good of all mankind. Putin alone has gassed thousands of civilians abroad and in Syria, and he has bombed apartment blocks in his own cities in 1999 to start a new conflict by blaming these atrocities on others. The diabolical wickedness, the vacuity, the vapidity of the Putin gangster regime is unsurpassed in modern decades. And Putin has perpetrated yet more massacres of the innocents in Ukraine. He shall slaughter ever more if he can. Is there no end to his bloodlust? And make no mistake, Putin's ambition is to go far, far beyond Ukraine. He entertains the darkest fantasies. Earlier, he demanded that NATO roll back its frontiers to where they were in 1997. He wants Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, all to come under his jackboot. Former Soviet republics. He would like Bulgaria, Romania, Poland, Slovakia, the Czech Republic, Albania, and other countries to be defenseless before him. He's a megalomaniac who's been very overt about his fantasy of reconquering the Soviet Empire and oppressing hundreds of millions. His lunatic and devilish megalomania is a mortal threat to world peace. A map on the wall behind Lukashenko at a briefing showed arrows onto Moldova. If Ukraine is bludgeoned into submission, then Moldova is the next intended victim, and there are yet more intended victims on the hit list. Where will be the target after Moldova? Let's not allow Putin to show us. So let Ukraine be a tombstone for Putin's sick fantasies of world mastery, because Ukraine shall live. And wherever you are in the world, remember that Putin would butcher your family too if he was given a chance. If you tolerate these crimes against humanity, then your children shall be next. So what do the Ukrainian people aim at? I can answer in a single word: victory. Victory, no matter how long and arduous the road may be, though it be paved with misery and agony every step of the way. And what do they want? They want freedom. Freedom of speech, freedom to vote, freedom of conscience, freedom to speak their language, freedom to own their property, freedom to follow any religion or none, freedom to come and go as they like, freedom to form alliances and trade blocs, freedom to determine their own destiny, the freedom to be Ukrainian. And Putin is striving to deprive them of all their rights and entitlements. And it is to these fundamental rights that they are dedicated, and they so incense the dictator cowering in the Kremlin. He is a stardust Stalin who is an avowed enemy of freedom everywhere and an outspoken advocate for oppression everywhere. Little Putin the thief in chief has robbed his people blind. He lives in luxury whilst most of his people live in poverty. He's a wimp who wears army uniform because he was never a soldier for a single day. His state terror apparatus murders journalists for telling the truth. He has murdered peaceful dissidents at home and abroad, citizens of foreign countries as well as Russians. He's surrounded by a contemptible clown car of sycophants and yes men who feed his fantasies. He is so pathetic that he dares not face the truth. He finds the facts intolerable. He's a dotant who shan't live much longer. Remember, death is not always sad. But the indomitable Ukrainian people shall not bow down. The last time a tyrant was foolish enough to invade Ukraine, he was given short shrift. But back then, the Ukrainians had the Russians as their brothers in arms. What a sad degeneration it is to see their Russians turn their guns on their former comrades. And of course, there are many decent and courageous Russians who recognize Putin for what he is, who recognize that Ukraine should not be invaded, and some Russians and Belarusians have gallantly made common cause with the Ukrainian people and are fighting back against Putin's legions. This unprovoked and illegal invasion of a peaceable nation is outrageous. Ukraine has done Russia no wrong. It could be the first chapter of a new dark age, and the International Court of Justice ruled it illegal and demanded that Ukraine be left in peace and Russia immediately halt her invasion. But if Ukraine is victorious, it could spell the end of a cruel tyranny in Russia. It could be the liberation of Russia too. So what will the Ukrainian people do? They shall resist, they shall fight and fight and fight until their last blood flows. Millions of them nobly laid down their lives in defense of their homeland in the 1940s, and at least 10 million more are willing to fight to the death today. They shall never give in to slavery and shame. So Ukraine calls her people, "Give me blood, and I shall give you freedom." Tens of thousands of people with no connection with Ukraine whatsoever have answered the clarion call to arms, and they're traveling to Ukraine from all corners of the globe to make the Ukrainian cause their own. They're sworn to spill their blood in the cause of liberty. Putin has made a very, very grave mistake. Taking on the free world is a serious undertaking, a very serious undertaking indeed. He has ignited the righteous wrath of free people everywhere and filled them with a terrible resolve. I hope that the Ukrainians shall distinguish themselves by their chivalry as they have by their gallantry. It's pitiable to see the whey-faced teenage conscripts who Putin has put into this almighty conflagration. These poor peons are being sacrificed on the altar of his madcap megalomania. Never forget that the majority of Russians are good people. They're tricked into this by the non-stop lying in the state-controlled media. So these unfortunate people have been dragged into a war unwillingly by their deranged dictator. And I call upon the Russian soldiers to lay down their arms and surrender and to rely on the mercy of the magnanimous Ukrainian people, and Ukraine shall live. So long after the name Putin is forgotten, Ukraine shall flourish great and free. Ukraine shall live. Ukraine is a name that shall re-echo for millennia. It is a name illumined in eternal resplendence. Slava Ukraina.